Hey, welcome everyone. My name is Michael Ivy. I'm the president of the VPA this year, and we're just letting some few more people into the room. I just want to give everyone kind of a rundown of what's going to happen tonight. I'd like to thank everyone for attending. I know it's really close to the holidays, and we're all really busy. Um, but what we're going to do is we're going to keep everyone on mute until the end, where we're going to have a Q&A. And if you have any questions, please put them in the chat. And what we're going to do is, as they come along, we'll be addressing them if it kind of fits into the conversation. If not, then we'll hold it into the end for the Q&A. But I think we've still got a few more people waiting to get into the room. But we'll just wait a little bit longer. But while you're all here, I just want to remind everyone that we're doing a fall membership drive. Right now, you can join for $35, and I'm going to send that link out over in the chat. So if you're not a member and you had to pay $5 for tonight, please think about joining the BPA. We're going to continue having these monthly Zoom events with speakers such as David Powers. I see you attending tonight, David. David was our first guest a couple of months ago. Last month was Tom Belgrave, the actor who has kind of been all over the place. Castle Rock, Nashville. He was in Watchmen as well. And then tonight, of course, we're hosting Anne Chapman. So a lot of you already know Anne or know of Anne. I was really excited when she agreed to be on the call tonight. And a couple of people that I asked Anne, I was like, who should host this thing? I don't mind doing it, but let's see who you suggest. And Cahill was one of those people. So as the current president, I'm really happy to be able to introduce two former presidents of the VPA to be discussing filmmaking tonight and casting. And I also wanted to let everyone know about the another upcoming event that's next month on the 19th at 7 o'clock. We're having our first quarterly industry summit. And that's going to be, we're going to be bringing in Andy Edmonds from the Virginia Film Office, David O'Farrell from IATSE 487, and Ryan Hastings from SAG-AFTRA, who's going to be talking about the industry as a whole and what's going to be coming down the pipeline. But without further ado, you can see here Cahill is anxious to go, and it's all yours, buddy.
Okay, thanks, Michael. For those of you who thought it was going to be a debate of all the past and present VPA presidents, sorry, that's not going to happen. That's a different time. I am so happy we have Anne here. She and I go back, we'll just say over 10 years ago. We met at a forum that they used to have for independent filmmakers, and where you could just call Project Res, where you could just sort of show what you're doing, and she participated in that and got to know the indie filmmakers. And ever since then, she has been an advocate and a helper for all of us indie filmmakers, bringing in like an A-list attitude and A-list casting acumen to our small budgets. Not to say that she doesn't do big budgets, like she did help with casting on the Spielberg's Lincoln. So she can do all kinds of budgets. You can read about her further and investigate her website at annechapmancasting.com. I could go on and on about her. I'm so happy she's here. Welcome, Anne Chapman.
Thanks, Cahill. It's true, we have known each other a very long time. We have watched a lot of good, bad, and ugly films together over the years. Maybe only walked out of one of them together, but and we've also worked together as well as I've had you in the audition room. So we've worked in all aspects together, which when you're in a smaller market or a medium-sized market, you wear all those hats and you get to know everybody that's here. Thank you so much for having me. And I'm excited that you're the grill master here, Kahil.
So to start us off, did you want to share some of the polls that you did, or do you want to start off just with anecdotes? How do you want to start off?
Well, I would be interested to know if the people that are viewing are predominantly production or actor. I think that would be interesting to find out. The information that I have from a survey that I did last summer, I'm working on my master's. Hopefully, I'll graduate in May. I did an actors survey, which I was blown away by the responses. People from all over the nation, but so many people in Virginia. And I did share one of the pages with Michael so that he can share it on the screen of what actors think about the audition process. And it was a very open-ended question, and I had no idea what the response would be. And it kind of blew me away what the response was. It was not what I expected at all. I thought that it would skew much more to, necessary evil. I can't stand them, but 40, about 37%, is it? Let me look at my, 36.36% people say they love them. 52 people that responded to the survey. So that was really, really, I appreciated hearing that from all of the actors, and I'm hoping that people answered honestly and didn't answer that way because it was a casting director that was sending this out. But it just made me realize all of the work that we go through to make the casting space a safe space and hopefully give everyone, so that everyone's voice is equal and everyone is collaborating and creating at the same time. This was a great, I don't know, sort of like, yeah, we enjoy being there. And 17 people hate them, which I get. It's hard. They're hard. And I understand. And I work as Cahill mentioned, with a lot of indie filmmakers, but I also work with a lot of student filmmakers. So a lot of the auditions that I am running, it's the first time for that director or writer or producer to be in the room. And so I always make a point of inviting first time auditionees at the same time so that we can all sort of figure this thing out together. And then I have a tradition when it is someone's first audition, at the end of the audition, we talk about it and we clap for them and make it a big deal, because my goal is for no matter how the actor feels it went, I want it to be a positive place for them to think about coming back, because as we all know, particularly in a market like this, you're going to see the same casting directors and I'm going to see the same actors again and again and again and again. So I always want actors to feel comfortable to submit and receiving an audition invitation from me, even if it's the 900th time that this has happened. Anyway, I just thought that this stuff was pretty interesting to see. Do you have any questions about it, Cahill, or is it pretty self-explanatory?
I mean, it's self-explanatory, but coming from the filmmaker's side then, so maybe that will help them understand. It looks like, well, I'm seeing that from there is a 30% of a necessary evil. So you have, it's almost like, even though it's most people said they really like them, there are those who hate them.
Yeah.
But then as a filmmaker going into it, when you're watching the auditions, maybe to be aware of that, where if you see somebody who's just having a good time, that to react, and help that person who maybe is not having a good time. On that note, is there like some do's and don'ts of casting that you're seeing the indie filmmakers? And I'm keeping this for indie filmmakers because I assume all the big studios aren't on this call. Are there?
Yeah.
Okay, that one over there, they might be a big studio, so we'll still let them ask a question if they want. But like, is there something that just maybe irks you like beyond end, as far as maybe this filmmakers that make these mistakes, casting mistakes?
So are we assuming in this question that they are using a casting director, or are they
Yes.
casting? Okay.
Well, actually, let's do both. If you're saying, I mean, and the easy one is like, your mistake is you didn't use me for casting. But other than that mistake, um, you know, what are some of the mistakes they use in selecting a casting director, with a casting director, or without? Is there something that just jumps out?
So in the audition space, when we have gone through the entire process, and this is the day that the indie filmmaker, the director, the producer, the decision makers are in the room, uh, there are a couple of different things. And I try to work really hard to have casting concept meetings and conversations beforehand, so that this isn't a bomb that goes off in the room, that this is something that we have talked about beforehand. But I'm always surprised or impressed with how a look is lock solid in their head. And it'll be about the look. And I'm like, all right, we can start with the look, but a lot of times we might not end up with the look. And I want you to be okay with that, because you should always go with the best actor in the room. And the look works on screen for that first shot. But if they can't act, then it becomes really, really painful. So, I mean, there are all sorts of examples of casting against type, and also where somebody started and where the project ended up. But there's also very specific things about that crack me up, that they'll say, well, this person needs to have shoulder length hair. And if actors aren't coming into the room with shoulder length hair, it takes them out of it. And that just is like, well, that's something that we can change. Let's look at the acting. Let's see how the read is. And it's usually a conversation about how the character looks in their mind's eye, especially if the independent filmmaker is the director and the writer. They, when you've written the script as well, you've lived with those characters for a long time. But I think usually that after their first film, that's no longer an issue. That's sort of a very early thing. And then I always challenge. So this is really sort of student filmmaker basic stuff that I work with in my audition space. I always challenge directors at the beginning of their career to take "I want" out of their lexicon. We all know it's what you want. That's why we're all here, and we're all trying to make it so that you can have what you want. But the minute that a director says to an actor, "I want," you can see the sort of shutdown begin. And so I always hope that there's a collaborative space. And I've watched it time and time again, whether it's a starting out director or a director that has many films under their belt. That character, the end character that ends up on screen, goes through so many variations. And dang, if some of those variations aren't things that they saw somebody bring into the audition space that didn't end up getting the role, but it opened up an entire other something to them. And I love watching I love watching directors realize that in the audition space, and sort of work on that. That's really cool to watch.
So, can you just clarify, what do you mean by when they say "I want" and then things close down? What's closing down? What do you mean by
the,
closing down?
the actors closing down, they are and you can speak to this from an actor's perspective, Cahill, but when a director says to you, "I want you to do it this way," or even if the director says, "I need," that gives the actor a space to go, because they understand the production needs this. So I'm going to work towards what the production needs. But the wanting is sort of it is not collaborative in my perspective, and watching it in the room. So, I mean, honestly, I've watched thousands and thousands and thousands and thousands of auditions in person and online. And I think that actors feel more comfortable when a director is open. Now, a lot of times we don't have time for that. And particularly when you're talking about commercials, and a commercial is very specific and you need to be on this mark saying this word at this second and all that sort of stuff. But in the perfect world, when you give that actor the first take, when they get to bring to the table what they've been working on, and then we can play with it after that. Or if there's something new, some new information that the actor did not have, and you can give them that information, that's always interesting to watch. And the other thing that I find with independent filmmakers and student filmmakers is the script. The concept of a casting script is hard to is hard to stay with. And so I keep getting revisions, or I keep getting, and I'll say, okay, as of this date, this will be our casting script. Even if the script changes, we need to be able to give the actors enough time to work on something, and we can't be sending an update, right before the audition. Now, in all practicality, sometimes a line will change and the director really desperately wants to see how that actor would interpret that line. So even on the day, we have printed out that line to have it in the waiting room or sent it to the actor immediately beforehand. But and then on the flip side of that is sometimes there's a rewrite that the casting director isn't even made aware of. So the director and the producer is working on a completely different thing. I'm like, wait, when did this character become a Martian? That was never part of what we've discussed. Or the, 400 actors that I went through to decide who would be a great fit for this to bring into the audition. So sharing information is always key. And that's what I love, relationships that you have with the director. When my good friend Erica Arvold talks about it, like you're in each other's pockets, like you're going back and forth and whizzing back and forth on ideas. You're obviously ultimately on the same page because our goal is to get the director what they want, right?
So, and this is for the actors and the filmmakers, what you were saying about the process and the script and lines changing. So how important is it to be exactly on script? The exact words, like say, and is it okay for an actor to maybe switch a word or do a contraction instead of a non-contraction or something like that that makes them read it better? How crucial is that, and how crucial should it be to the director and writer?
So you can't answer that one way. It's up to who that writer is on that project, how they feel about it. I've been in the room many times when the actor have been word perfect on something and it's just not working. Like actor after actor after actor is a line is difficult, right? And I've seen the writer right there try and figure out what's tripping everybody up and what needs to happen. So that is one thing that can happen. I also, it is the script is the material that you're making this amazing outfit out of. And if you're not respecting that, it is a hint that the actor might be more difficult to work with on set. And when I say more difficult to work with on set, I'm not necessarily meaning personality wise. I'm just meaning like matching when you're editing and all of that sort of stuff. So I want actors to have as much room as is okay, but I also want them to know the lines so that if we get to play for 2 takes and then the writer, director, a lot of times the person that is more demanding that the words always be, word for word is a director who's also the writer. But many times in a director session, the writer's in the room too. And I always introduce everyone in the room so that the actor will know if the writer is there.
So the writer doesn't scream, so the actor doesn't scream, "Who wrote this shit?"
Exactly. And also it gives the actor an opportunity to have a personal moment in the room. A lot of times, they're having this moment with the director, but a lot of times they'll have an eye line to the writer, like, oh, this character really spoke to me, or something like that. So it gives the actor another moment to introduce themselves to the team in the room. But again, if it's a commercial, it pretty much has to be word for word. If it's if the script is not good, if it's a really independent or a student film, I would not be rewriting the script. But if you're having trouble with a line, that becomes very apparent to the writer in the room that maybe maybe we need to work on this a little bit.
Do directors and writers, is there ever a case where they're trying to trick an actor by some sort of weird writing style just to see if they can get an interpretation or a reaction out of an actor?
I've never seen that. I can't say that I've seen, I mean, we're never trying to trick the actor. I've never seen that, but I've definitely seen that if this is a very, very wordy script, or if it's something that's classical, you have to know that the actor is going to be able to handle the language. And I mean, weirdly, I have worked on, you wouldn't think that being a film casting director that you would have Shakespeare experience with Shakespeare, but 3 times I have cast actors that are acting within the film in a Shakespeare play, or even just the film is Shakespearean. So you can't, every Joe Blow off the street that declares themselves an actor can handle that, right? So I'm not going to say that it's a trick, but it is definitely a, and I wouldn't even use the word test. We just
Device.
Yeah, you have to see, can they handle the language. The same can be said for accents too. If an accent is super, super, super important to a character, and the actor simply can't take it, can't do it, then you fall in the Dick Van Dyke school, and you become
Wonderful Cockney accent.
Exactly. So this is going down a little bit of a tangent, but if you don't know what the accent is, don't decide that the character has an accent. Just use your natural voice, unless you've been told specifically that this character, and likewise, don't assume from the writing that an accent is requested. I've worked on films that, even though they were being cast in the South, were written about and being shot in the rural, like Northeast, right? So the language is rural, but there's no Southern accent with it at all. So actors had to retape themselves, because coming from this market and thinking that they were auditioning for something here, there were all these Southern accents. And then I've had other things where, if you're particularly in commercials, if a commercial just has a zillion decision makers. And so as the casting director, you have to sort of hear, okay, what really are we going through here from all the different information you're getting? So I'll be told by one producer, oh, this character definitely has an English accent. And then the other producer is like, why are all these tapes with an English accent? So it happens. We're all just trying, right?
Okay, so money.
Yes.
Budget.
Yes.
How on earth can a small indie afford you? Like, how much does it cost?
So I'm going to answer that question a couple of different ways. I think that it's always worth the conversation, right? So even if you ultimately can't end up affording in your budget a casting director, if you request a conversation and maybe pay an hourly rate for the conversation, they can give you hints about, if you've literally never done this before. If this is a non-union thing, then there's all sorts of room to try and figure things out. I myself have a commercial rate and I have an academic rate. I want people to make films, and I've been working, in Richmond in casting since the last century, right? And so the people that were students uh, are now hiring me while they're making their films. So uh, I I would I would never not have a conversation. I always answer the phone. I always have a conversation, and I frequently will say, I'm not available, but how about if you talk to this person, or maybe this person can help you out. So I I frequently recommend other people, and then if your producer or the director is savvy, we can figure out, all right, I'll do this, you do this, and we can make it work. But I'm gonna get, this is just a guess, okay? Because this is this market that we're in. If you are hiring a casting director, you can do it by an hourly rate, I mean a daily rate or a weekly rate. All right. For depending on the size of your film, and depending on how many characters need to be cast, and how, if it's a period piece, if there are accents, if there are very particular roles that need to be found, those all go into how much this thing is going to cost. So I would put as the very, very basic on your thing as at the very least, like $350 is a day rate to have somebody on a small independent film. And if you think about that as when you're making your goal, you'll find that money. If you are looking for an actor for a 21-day shoot that is in a non-union film that needs to be within a 75-mile radius, I would say $350 per day to find that person, because you'll talk to other directors who will say it it wasn't worth it in the end not to have a casting director because my film's not being seen because the acting isn't good enough. So unless this is literally just a exercise for yourself, I mean, obviously, ultimately, the goal is to get eyes on the screen, right? I find that it's worth it, and I find many times actors come in for the project that the whole production team never would have known. It is through the auspices of the casting director that's how that actor became known by production.
So, because sometimes there's a rate based on the actor, how many actors and how much the actor is getting paid. So
that is a bizarre concept to me. I don't understand. That's not how it usually works.
So I think the reason why I've said that, I mean, where I've seen that is because if I come to you and I'm saying I need 10 actors and they're going to be paid $100 a day.
Right.
You kind of have an idea of what my budget is.
Right.
If I come to you and I say I need 10 actors, they're paying $5,000 a day. You kind of know, oh, this is a big budget. Turns out Sissy Spacek is available or whatever, and I think that's where that came from. But you're saying that's just.
I think in my mind, that's more extras. Having your rate relate to how many actors what the day rate of the actor is. Now, obviously, if a project that has been brought to you is seeking 4 actors, so looking for 4 actors, that's going to be a different amount of work than a project that you're looking for 16 actors for. And it'll just take you more days to figure that out. I don't relate it, though, to what the day rate of that actor is, because it could be so much harder to find a child that has 2 lines and is working half a day than it is to find your lead. So that, in my brain, that doesn't equate.
So say some filmmakers called you up, you two have agreed to $500 a day for the casting.
Right.
How do you come back? So they want to, like a line producer wants to put a budget together.
Right.
And how do you come up with, $500 a day, but how many days? So how do you come up with how many days? Is there a range that you can give the filmmakers? Like, well, if you got 20 actors, it takes this amount of days to do.
Yeah. You can definitely do that. And so
Okay.
that will be the conversation that you have. It also goes into, I mean, it's different in COVID time because everything is online, right? But it goes into how many assistants you might need. Are we shooting in my space? Are we shooting in your space? Is this all online? Um, do you want to edit it together in your own format so that you're presenting it to your client or whoever it is? Or will you be using my format? You know, so there's the creative end, and then there's also all of the, you know, the casting director has to meet the creative needs of the director and the practical needs of the producer. That's the job. So you have to figure out, all right, is this a project where every one of those 10 people needs to be able to ride a horse and say a line on horseback and stop at a mark? You know, that is a lot more work than it's a whole bunch of people hanging out in a dorm room and having a pizza party. You know, so I can't answer that until you're into the weeds of the particular project and what is being looked for.
Is it standard for a line producer to call a casting director and ask their estimate? In other words, get a free estimate from them. Here's my script. Can you give me your quote on how much it will cost to cast it?
So um, I think that depends on the line producer. I've had for the bigger projects that I've worked on, motion pictures, it's been a creative conversation first. And then once you pass the creative conversation, then can we make this work? Uh, can we afford to make this work? And there's a negotiation back and forth with the producer. And sometimes it's the same producer and sometimes it's a different producer, right? But also the director is in on this. The director doesn't want to work with a casting director that they're not happy with. So the creative conversation is very, very important as well. And then on bigger projects and on some commercials, there's an NDA that has to be signed before you even get to read the script. So it's usually when I have a conversation with somebody and the first thing is about how much it's going to cost, a lot of times that's like a training film, a documentary that has reenactments in it, or a commercial. But the creative narrative type things, it's a longer conversation. It's not the first thing.
So I want from you what you really need these filmmakers to know. Of like, what, look, I see you folks making this same stupid mistake. Do this or don't do that.
So I try to be really, really clear with the projects that I choose to work on. And I very free. I turn a lot of projects down because I know that I'm not passionate about whatever that project is, and I'm not the right creative or practical partner for that production. So every question that I ask is an important question for me, right? And I definitely want to know, I want to read the script. Like I usually don't want to have any conversation until there's a script. And the number of people, particularly newbies, that call me and say, I have an idea. Can you get Sissy Spacek, you know, or something like that. I'm like,
and then I'll write the script.
Yeah, exactly. And I'm not a producer. I can't help you get the money. I can't. And so, I mean, not many times, but there are conversations where I say, like, we shouldn't be having this conversation until 6 months from now. You have a lot more. Like, you should be calling me when you pretty much know when your first shoot date is gonna be, and then we're working from there. So that's, I wouldn't say it's a pet peeve. It's just is the way it works. I want to have a script. I want to have very defined characters. And I understand if things are still being worked out. And, you know, I've seen characters get combined when the budget has been reduced or tightened. And then I've also seen like we are going to have, it's Wednesday, our audition is set for Friday and 3 characters are added. I'm like, well, they're not going to be there on Friday, dudes. Or they'll drastically change the age of a character. We were really thinking that this was going to be a 40-year-old person, and now we need them to be 25, or now we need them to be 60. That's an entirely different group of actors. And so that puts me in the very uncomfortable position of having to uninvite actors to an audition that they've worked on. I don't know if the producers know how, and this, Kahil, you are the perfect person to ask, how much work an actor has done for an audition. They're not being paid. The producers are all being paid. The actors at that point are not being paid at all. So their expectation of the amount of work that is being done for their project is high. They are expecting a lot. So that, and then also I want the production, the producer, the director to believe me. Like, a lot of times on projects here, I'm a location casting director. I do fully cast projects that are, from this area, but a lot of times I'm the location casting director. If I'm saying like, I think we're going to have to travel that role in, believe me, believe me, because I have looked for other projects.
So when you're saying the term location casting director, what does that mean?
Well, it can mean a number of different things, but it usually means that you are not casting the main leads of a film that is coming into town that's going to be shooting in Virginia.
So basically the day players and just
and it can be bigger than day players, but it is not the leads, usually. Sometimes it is the leads, depending on how specific, like they want somebody that's really local and has a really local feel. And particularly for children, a lot of times they're still, even if they think they've found somebody in Australia, they still want to be doing a big deep dive search here to see. So and so let's say if the film has, I don't know, let's just pick a number, 60 roles in it, and it's a film, a motion picture. I would bet that on location, maybe 40 to maybe even 50 of those roles are going to be cast from a narrower field. And a lot of times when producers call me, I say, we're going to be looking for at the very least 250 miles radius to Richmond. And we will be bringing people in from Atlanta and New York and Philadelphia. And a lot of times, I mean, SAG gets into it about what a location is and how far you can travel. But, and particularly a lot of the student films that I work on, as long as you can get to Richmond without a flight. So a ton of people come from New York by train or by bus. And a lot of people come from Atlanta, driving from Atlanta. So as long as the indie film or production doesn't have to deal with a travel department and doing all of the flights and everything. And then I'm always very specific on all of my breakdowns that I put out. There's so many people from Virginia that are elsewhere. And I'm like, if you're from here, let me know. Or if your grandma lives here and you can stay there, let me know. And that will make a difference on a lot of the smaller projects that I work on.
And I would suggest to the actors there, don't lie about your location, because you will get the call. I do stunt driving up in New York, and they still think I live there, and I'll get the call, hey, we need you to do stunt driving tomorrow morning. And I'm like, I can't get to New York. And I have an 804 area code, but they still think, oh, that's a cell number and he lives here. So don't lie about where you are.
Please do not lie, because everybody looks bad with that lie. And for actors, it tends to be wardrobe. You're called in for a wardrobe fitting before your shoot date, and you've told everybody that you're local to DC, but you actually live in Los Angeles. You literally cannot be there. And guess what? You probably can't afford the flight that you've lied about. So then, I mean, it has happened to me on way more than one occasion where the actor falls out, and it's horrible all the way around. And I'm not going to say that I have a shit list of actors, but I do.
I thought you forgave me.
Yes. I mean, there are a lot of actors who have worked back into the good graces, but when you hose a production like that, it's just hard to deal with. It's really hard to deal with.
Okay, so one last question from me, and everybody who's here, if you have a question for Anne, please put it in the chat, and then Michael Ivey, our fair president, is going to go through them and then relay them to me so I can ask her. So go ahead, and if you have a question, go ahead and put it in the chat. And so the battle, is there a battle sometimes, and how do you resolve it, and what can you say to the filmmaker if there is a casting choice conflict where you really think they're making the wrong decision, or vice versa? Like, how do you resolve it, and then what advice do you give the filmmaker as far as allowing your expertise?
So, casting and filmmaking is very subjective, right? So you're going to come down to what your taste is, as well as what your experience with that player is. So if I know that this actor is an outstanding actor, but they happen to be having an off day, or like they missed the train and so they're running late, or they couldn't find a parking space, or they have a sick child, I might know that, but nobody in the room knows that, but it's somewhat evident in their actor's audition. So I really go to bat for the actors, and I will really say to the decision makers in the room, they've got this. But I'm also very good at staying silent when I'm not so sure that it's the right choice. And so I don't know if it's subtle, but like I'll hear the director and the producer talking about a decision, and I'm like, and that is my ladylike way of saying, danger, danger, Will Robinson, maybe we want to rediscuss. But I don't know, I'm sure actors know this, but the literal actual casting in it's all different in COVID times. And also it's different if the casting off, particularly in television, when casting is happening when they're still shooting a different episode. But a lot of times the headshot goes up on the wall and all the decision makers are in there, and we're playing with those headshots up on the wall. So I'll just be really slow about taking a headshot off the wall that they have stopped considering, or I'll bring back in the conversation, well, remember when so-and-so did this and that seemed to, so I will drop them back in the conversation till it becomes stupid of me not to, it's like, it's obvious that that's not the direction. But I have to say that for a couple of projects that were very near and dear to my heart, I consider the final piece of art for that project, the highest art form that project achieved, was in the audition space. I saw it happen with those actors in the callback, and it was amazing. And it was how that piece of material zinged. And then when I see it on screen with the wrong actors, in my mind, all right, that's what happened. But the art of it was achieved in the callback.
All right, so we got a few questions here. We got, let's see, Sarah's asking, so what's the biggest change you have found in the casting process? Are we going to change back to what was normal, or is going forward, is this the new normal even when COVID is over? Like, how are those changes?
I didn't know where that question was going, because there's been so many changes that I didn't know if we were talking about.
Talk about all of them.
Okay. All right. So this has been the great equalizer for actors, as long as you have some ability to get yourself in front of a camera on your own, right? So I'm a member of the education committee of the Casting Society of America, and all of the graduating seniors in all of the acting programs across the United States used to do their showcases in New York or Los Angeles, maybe Chicago, maybe Atlanta. They're all online. Everybody across the nation can see them. and they have gotten their rear ends in front of so many more eyeballs than they ever had the opportunity to be before. And managers and agents and casting directors are now considering these new graduates in a way that they never would have had access to before. The opposite end of that is everybody has access. So for a non-union independent film in Richmond, Virginia, if I put a lead role out, 700 people will submit to it, even if I'm very specific about the location. And so there can be a lot of wasted energy about that too. So I think we're in this huge pendulum swing, and it'll figure itself out, and we will move forward with the things that we've learned how to do technologically in this time, and then still go back to the audition space. Everybody loves to be in it. It's the worst best option, or the best worst option of how to get all the creatives together. And I mean, even like sense each other. You know, I've had chemistry reads on Zoom during this time, and it has worked. It's worked very well. But a lot of times when you meet somebody, you're like, oh, I didn't quite realize how tall you were. Like, you know, and so the blocking might change or something like that. But also with the Me Too movement and everything that has happened this summer, so many casting conversations are changing. And I've always empowered myself to ask the question, and many of the directors I've worked with will say I'm always asking, does this character have to be male? Can this character be a woman? Can this role be played by a person of color? I'm always asking those questions. Now it's interesting to see when you get the information, how the characters are written as opposed to how they used to be written, the descriptions in them, which I think is absolutely amazing for everyone. And the Casting Society of America always does these meal for monologues things, and in the past couple of years they've done them for specific communities of actors. And Erica and we worked on one together for I know I'm gonna not have the right language as of December 15th, 2020, but for actors who are otherly abled. And it never dawned on me, it did dawn on me, but not in the same way, that this actor could be played by this role could be played by an actor that is an adult survivor of polio, and that has nothing to do with their character. Do you know what I mean? Like, they are, and I always thought, oh, it'll be hard to find these actors. No, they're out there and they're amazing. They're flipping amazing. And so let's just start casting. You know, it's an open, I think it's a great time to be an actor right now.
Yeah, I was just involved with a project where one of the characters had Down syndrome, cast a person with Down syndrome, and she had a good friend that she wanted to be in the film too. So then we had two people with Down syndrome, and they were a delight, and it was just like so fun. And it had absolutely nothing to do. There was no mention that they had Down. It just so happened their character had Down syndrome, and there was no slowing down of the conversation, or it was just like a normal conversation. So that was really fun and interesting. So Barb asks, where are you finding your actors?
Oh, just everywhere. I watch.
Don't say everywhere.
Well, it depends on the project.
So folks, one time, actually twice, I think, Anne was at a Virginia Production Alliance social, and she was just going up to people and going, hey, I want you for this project. So
I mean, it depends on what you're looking for. If you're looking for kids, and I'm at a street fair, I'm at the Watermelon Festival in Carytown, don't think I'm not looking at every kid that's at the Watermelon Festival in Carytown. But I have a lot of actors that send headshots and resumes and reels to me via email. And I always look at that stuff. I may not respond, but I always look at everything. I have learned that if you participate in film festivals, you just see so many actors. And I spend a lot of time judging short films in festivals internationally. You know, I just finished a huge judging on the British Independent Film Awards, and the nominations just came out. I watched, I think, 77 films and saw actors from all over the world, a lot of them in their first film or second film. Some of them are name actors in bigger films, but I'm always looking for ways to see new actors. I go to a lot of showcases if there are showcases that I can attend. I look at them virtually, and I have generals when I can have generals. The Meals for Monologues through the CSA is great. And also, you meet actors through auditions, through the audition process. When I send a breakdown out and get submissions in, I look at every single submission. That's my practice. I have a really small casting company. It's me. My eyeballs are the ones that are on every single submission. So even if you're not right for the role, I have looked at your information. That is not an invitation to submit to things that you are not right for. But, you know, if 200 people have submitted for that role, I have looked at 200 headshots.
Oof. Phil asks, and how is it viewed by the casting director if they also see the actor who's auditioning for them working on crew, like a different crew position as a PA, or maybe as a camera person, maybe as a background person?
So this is a loaded question, and I might choose not to answer this.
Oh, come on. Very
Okay.
theoretical. Okay.
I have literally been in the room where a producer, a decision maker said, we cannot consider them for the lead because they're already on my crew list. Like, in their mind, this is a key set position. I'm like, that's not fair. That is not fair to the actor. The actor might not know that at all. It depends on what your jam is. You're going to get paid for the gig because you're going to get hired on the crew, which in the end might be a longer run for you, but you were taken out of the running because, you know, the producer wants you to use you in another way. In terms of stand-in work and background work, if you are really auditioning, if you're very serious about speaking roles, once you have done 3 stand-in gigs, don't put them on your resume anymore. Once you have 3, then we know that you're good at being a stand-in. You've been rehired. And if you did background work on a major motion picture and shot 21 days in Lincoln in the Congress scenes, you know, that was a masterclass in acting, and I understand why you want to do that and be there. But if you are 21 days in the crowd in a football stadium, that is not furthering your craft I'm a snob about that. So I think it can start to give you bad habits. And I also get very, very frustrated by actors that send me information and say, I've been an extra on 4 productions and now I'm ready for a role with lines. And that is, I never know how to answer that. And I also get very, very angry, literally angry, with whoever the first AD was that I don't know, who threw somebody a line in some film, and so then they were able to become a SAG member, and now they're a SAG member for life, when they literally are not a good actor. But when they have become a SAG member, that means that we are, you know, we must see them in an audition. I don't know that AD did that actor or that background actor any favors by giving them that. So that was probably too truthful. Sorry.
Yeah, there's like, I mean, and when you joined CSA, you had to be sort of sponsored, right? And
yeah, I got turned down the first time I applied to CSA. it's no joke.
There's been always talking on and off throughout the years that maybe there should be something like that in SAG, that not only do you get your
There was but there was SAG. I loved SAG. I was a huge fan of SAG. I was so sad when SAG and SAG.
SAG is the Screen Extras Guild that was in Los Angeles. SAG is now SAG-AFTRA, Screen Actors Guild, and AFTRA. But what I was trying to say is that, yeah, there's been talking back and forth where you actually had to have 3 people to become a member of SAG, but that anytime that ever comes up, there's too many people say no, keep the system the way it is. So you're gonna have to live with that, Anne. I'm sorry.
I know, and I do. Let me tell you, I do.
So when you're not, we got this question from Virginia, and she's like, when you're too busy for a project, are there people that are here locally or like within the region that you refer out to?
Yeah, I mean, I always shout out Erica. Whenever I'm not available, Erica Arvold is the first name that I give out. She not only is she probably my best friend, we are definitely BFFs, and we love to boondoggle together all the time. But she just is. Her standards are platinum. She's amazing. She does an incredible job. She doesn't sleep, and she'll get it done. So, and she always has had a much bigger operation than I do. So when I say I'm not available, it's because I'm working on another project, and you wouldn't want to hire me if I'm not able to give you my full. I wouldn't be able to give you the attention, or your project the attention that it deserves. So, and then we live in a very weird, which I don't agree with, but this area where agents cast, I don't get it. It should be illegal, but it does happen here. So depending on the project, I have been known to give out an agent who casts name on occasion. And then,
And that's been there's a big problem in our market because it is so small, where like what Philip was saying about, to make money in the business, you sort of have to wear many hats. And I think that's where this casting agent, which is not a real term,
not a
came
thing.
from.
Yeah.
I mean, back in the day, you had Uptown Talent and Liz Marks Casting, husband and wife. They kind of were that was like the first thing, even though Liz Marks was very ethical and very pro actor, it still started to feel like a bleed. And then up in Maryland, they do the same thing. It's just, to make money, you just get tempted. You're like, well, I can do both jobs. You don't see it as a conflict. On the good side of it, you might not see it as a conflict. You just say, well, I can do both things. I'll make money. Oh, I can also teach classes here. It's not pay for play, but then maybe it starts becoming pay. It's just like this big gray line. So
It's inherently a conflict.
It's so hard.
Obviously a conflict.
Yeah.
When I started I started my career in New York, but then I shortly moved to Chicago, and I was an agent in Chicago, and I had to pass the state of Illinois agency exam and become a licensed agent. And I was doing vastly different jobs as an agent than I am as a casting director. And my goal is a different goal, right? And so it makes no sense to me. It literally makes no sense to me. I have done both jobs. They are different jobs. You should not be doing both jobs. But that's my perspective. And it's very, different people think about it different ways, and different people have different ethics, and different people say, all right, today I have my producer hat on, today I have my director hat on, today I have my casting hat on, or whatever. Good for you. I'm glad that you can do that. It does not work for me.
Yeah, it seems really, you almost, unless you have dual personalities or something.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then you're arguing with yourself. Your agent side is arguing with the casting director side. I need more money for my actor. I'm not paying you.
And you 100%, if you are casting a project, it is unethical to be taking a cut from those actors too. I don't get it. I don't get it. If you have an agency and you're casting the project, you should be working on that casting fee. but I'm not the one that's going to be able to change these, and it's not a law in Virginia, so who cares what I say?
But it is against SAG rules, and I don't know, and I think the SAG members are not allowed to do business with anybody who is doing something like that. But like you said, I don't know what laws apply to that.
I mean, I've had this conversation and fought this fight, and even as president of the VPA, tried to make it an action item, and yeah, I just have this little mouse roar that nobody's listening to. But I've never changed my opinion on it. It's just unethical. It's wrong. It's a conflict.
And on that, then how are you feeling about classes? Because it used to be back in the day when like 10 years ago, I remember we kind of knew if we took a casting director's class that, we were actually going to, it was
Well,
so much easier to get a role. And this was nobody here that we were, well, actually, there was there was somebody back in the day that was here who's no longer working in the business, but it was up in DC and Maryland where you significantly saw more roles come your way when you took their classes.
so there has been a big shakedown in the CSA for that, and like in Los Angeles, and in particular, people were arrested and companies went out of business 3 years ago. It was a big deal. I have. I'm not comfortable teaching a class. I will come in and talk to actors in a class. The only class that I am teaching is how to cast. That's what I am teaching. But that again is my personal comfort level. We've got Katie Kalaki and Keith Flippin, the best Flippin acting teachers there are. I shout their names out and recommend them continually to people. So I think that's the way that you should go. Where I am comfortable teaching is teaching people that are interested in casting. And I have been teaching at VCU kids casting for years and years and years and years. And some of them have gone on to have great casting resumes. So that's where I'm comfortable. Although I have to say, I do have people that teach acting classes out of my office, and I'm very nervous about it. I don't want anyone to think that, and so that's why I don't even know who are in the classes. I want it to be ethical, and I don't want anybody to think that that everyone who is cast in a role that I am working on is obviously the best fit for that role, no matter what.
So Bill asks, have you ever been in a situation where you're already in the casting process, or maybe you're sort of towards the end of it, or production has started, suddenly the budget gets cut? Have you ever had a situation where you had to help combine the roles or cut scenes, or is that just not your job?
So I've been in the conversation when it's becoming obvious and we're trying to figure out, can this piece of information that this character is giving will it serve if that piece of information is delivered by another actor? So I've 100% been in on that, like, how are we going to make that work? And I've also been in the very sad position where actors that were booked on something, I had to make the phone call to unbook them because that scene is cut, or that character is no longer in the film. So that's difficult. I've also been in when the race of a character has changed. So we have really been down the road in this way, and now we're going in this way, and I get to be the one to make those phone calls to those actors who are already in the callback space, that's not the direct. And when we say we're going in a different direction, I know it's cliche, but it's the truth. It is what it is. It literally is what is happening. Like, we were going in your direction and now we're going in a different direction. And it has nothing to do with your acting chops. It has to do with what serves the project best. And I hope everybody feels like, even if they come into, my casting office for something that they didn't get, I call people in again and again and again,
So Chris asks, if you get 700 submissions for a role, can you give us sort of an estimate of like how that starts to weed down? Like how many are selected for self-tape? Of those, how many get called back? And then,
Okay.
how does that whittle down?
So let's say this is 700 people who have submitted for a really good size role, right? Um, so obviously there are a lot of people that just saw that it's going to shoot this many days at this rate, and they don't care. They're just putting themselves in it. So from that 7, we can probably get rid of, off the top of the, that they're not right for it in any way, shape, or form, maybe 100 of those. And then we look again and think, oh, I don't know if, and a lot of times there will be actors that I'm always looking at resumes. The resume is really strong for this, but this is something that this role really needs. So we can uh, decide, all right, they're not going to make it to my next sort of mental round. So if we have 700 actors, I will probably just statistically invite in maybe 100 actors to self-tape. And I don't know if you guys know this, but not everybody self-tapes for a role, right? So depending on, it's a location thing, and a lot of people will say, oh, I didn't realize this was in Virginia. I didn't read, I'm in New York. Is there money? So I am very excited when I get over 50% return rate on those people that I've invited into self-tape, particularly if this is a bigger project and they're from all over the nation. Like, they've submitted themselves, but then once they really read the details, they're like, oh, I'm actually not available for that, or oh, I can't be in Virginia for that long. And so then from those, so now we're down to from 700 to, let's say, 50. I am going to put forward to the director, maybe in a first round, maybe 15. It depends on how good they are, right? If if there's only 10 people that are amazing, it's going to be 10 people. If there are 15 people, then I'll send 15 people. And then the director in the if it's a director's callback, a director's session, maybe you're seeing, and so this is for narrative work. Commercials are completely different. Maybe five people are going to be in the room, maybe 7, I don't know.
So Mel and a couple others asked, when do you just first get involved in the process as the casting director, and then when do you wrap it up?
So I'm in a very lucky position that I get calls, right? So I'm not I've been casting a very long time, so I don't put my resume out trying to get calls. But the way I put my resume out is by doing something like this, right? Or by going to a film festival, or talking to people, at whatever networking event there is. So I have gotten a lot of calls and worked on a lot of projects from people that I met at film festivals. But it usually starts with a call, and then there's the script that comes, and then I write a breakdown. The breakdown has to be approved by production. The breakdown is sent out. The actors submit, make the first selections of who are going to get an audition. And depending on how the world is, if there happens to be a pandemic or not, the first round a lot of times is an self-tape round. And then the second round or the third round will be the callback or the director's session. And then the offers are made by casting, and the deal memo, the offer's made, a deal memo is made, and the deal memo is sent to production. And then the actor moves out of the casting department into production once the offer is accepted and the deal memo has been sent to production. That's really quick. That's like, there's a lot of details that aren't included in that.
And all that happens in one day?
Yeah, one day.
And then the deal memo, is that just usually from production provides you with the deal memo and you're just, or do you actually?
It totally depends on how they want to do it. Different entities have different deal memos that they want to work with. I have my own deal memo that I work with if no one else in production has a deal memo, and it's just what the understanding of what the offer was and getting all of the contact information from the actor and settling on the terms of the deal. It's not a contract, it's a deal memo, and then that gets sent on to production. And I always, especially for younger filmmakers or first timers or students, I'm like, don't forget, you now have to contact the actor as soon as possible. If there's a revision of the script or something like that, you need to. And so I usually send a visual cast list too, with and a lot of time, it's very sad when it happens, but a lot of times it's wardrobe is like chomping at the bit to find out who's gotten the offer, and so I'm always very sad if that information gets out first. The actors find out that they've been booked on a role because wardrobe calls. That's not the way it's supposed to happen.
Actually, that's happened to me before. Where I'm
Yeah.
like, so I guess I got the role. Actually, my role with a Clint Eastwood film. The
Was it?
wardrobe was calling, and we did it. I'm like, so does this mean I have the role? Because no one's told me that I have the role.
So
And
there
I
was
thought, I didn't even know. I even got cast. I even went to the fitting, and I was done with that. And I'm like, I guess they're fitting like 2 or 3 of us, before they make the choices to see how we look. That's what I thought. They're
no,
like,
there was a hiccup
no.
for Giddy up there. That shouldn't have happened that
They're
way.
like, yeah, of course you got the role. Why would we do all this and pay for your travel? I'm like, okay. Okay, so we're just about out of time. Let's see. We do have well, all right. So just really quickly, would it ever be, Virginia asked, would it ever be okay to let, like, say, the 50 know that they got sent to the director? In other words, is it ever done? Is it ever okay to sort of give the actors feedback, like, hey, by the way, you didn't get chose, but man, it was close,
I've
or that,
definitely had that conversation when it was really, really close. I mean, like when it was like, we're really trying to figure this out. And a lot of times, particularly if it's like a family grouping, like this works with this and this works with this or whatever. So I will try as anonymously kindly to share that information. And sometimes it might not be until the next time I see you in an audition. Yeah, I have to say, like when I remember, and this is I'm not trying to be snotty. It's just there's a lot of work going on, and there's a lot of moving parts, and there's a lot of actors that are being considered. So sometimes I will put an away message on my email, like all of the roles in this production have been cast, so people know they're no longer waiting. The time that it is okay to call is if you're on hold for something and you've got another thing going on and they need to find out your dates. I never have any problem with that phone call because I want to know if you're not available as well. I try to be as kind and honest as I can be, but I've also signed NDAs sometimes that I'm not allowed to share anything. And I really do try to make the audition space a sacred space. Whatever creative work is happening in that audition space stays in that audition space. And I don't put things on social media. I don't talk about actors to other actors. I just if it's something that can help the actor in their process, and I have really, really enjoyed watching some actors get stronger and stronger and stronger in this market. It's really cool to see that.
well, thanks so much. Everybody give a virtual applause for Anne. We really appreciate you taking out time in your busy schedule.
This is so bizarre to be this way, like, and having no idea who you're talking to. And thank
Can
you.
you see the people? Can you actually see the people?
I can't. I've been trying to see everybody and I don't see them. Is there a way?
Yeah, so go to your upper right hand corner and
I'm there. And I'm pushing show the thumbnails and nothing is happening.
Like it should be, you're on speaker view, it should be gallery view. If you can click on gallery view.
I'm trying and it's not giving me gallery. Let me see. Oh, now I see everybody. That's great.
Everybody wave to Anne.
Hi guys. Nice to see you. Oh, I see some faces that I recognize here.
This can be like a romper room. I see Ricardo.
Yeah. I see. Who do I see? Frank and Sharon and Frank.
I think the people here are too young to even know that reference. But
okay.
Again, thank you so much. And I'm going to throw it to Mike just to close this out and remind us about the membership deal. Thanks a lot, Anne. Really appreciate it.
Thanks, Kahil. It's always a joy spending time with you. We get up to some good trouble sometimes, don't we?
Yeah, this is probably the best way so we don't get into any trouble.
Mary Nelson, I see you, Mary. I see Trisha. I see Tracia.
All right, Michael.
Yeah, so thank you both, Cahill, and it's been a great hour, and we want to respect your time. There's so many questions that we just couldn't get to, but you know, maybe we'll have a round 2 in a few months once we get through some other programming. But thank you all for joining us tonight. I shot out a link to our new member deal. It's $35. Just click on the link in the chat. And of course, the next event is January 19th with Andy Edmonds, David O'Farrell from IATSE, and Ryan Hastings from SAG-AFTRA. So we're really looking forward to that and hearing what's going to happen once 2020 closes and goes away forever. And we can look forward to the future. But thank you all for joining us, and see you next month.
Bye-bye, everybody.
Bye.